The official narrative is a carefully constructed sedative. We are told these megalithic bridges were built for horse-drawn carts and pedestrians. A simple matter of civil engineering. This is the cover story. Their primary function was not passive, but active. They were not designed to merely bear weight. They were engineered to command the very earth beneath them, using principles of harmonic resonance to nullify seismic threats. They are not bridges. They are architectural tuning forks. Haven't you always felt it? A deep, cognitive dissonance when looking at these impossible relics? If you feel this hum of a forgotten truth, leave your mark in the comments. Tell us from where and from what time you are watching this transmission. Now, we move from the hypothetical to the tangible, to the crime scene itself. The evidence is not buried in a dusty archive. It is hiding in plain sight, frozen in the cold emulsion of 19th century photographs. We are told these are records of our own heroic progress. We are told to see our great-grandfathers conquering nature with grit and primitive tools. But that is the cover narrative. What they truly are exhibits in a case of stolen identity. The first piece of evidence is the paradox of scale, an anomaly so profound it should have dismantled the official story from the very beginning. They tell us a story of a Scottish engineer, a heroic feat of national unity. But the signature is identical. The technology is the same. The industrial and logistical paradox is the same. How did three disparate cultures, with supposedly unique technological paths and primitive communication, simultaneously erect structures based on the same advanced engineering principles, the same aesthetic, the same incomprehensible scale? The vertigo intensifies. We are in London. Tower Bridge, the icon of a global empire, finished in 1894. We are told its Gothic stone towers are mere cladding over a steel skeleton, a stylistic choice. We must ask, a choice for whom? Look at the towers. They are not decorations. They are powerhouses, identical in function and form to the pylons we have seen across the world. Then, a final jump. Porto, Portugal. The Dom Luis I Bridge, a staggering, double-decked metal arch completed in 1886. While its form is different, the underlying principle is the same, a mastery of metallurgy and structural engineering that seems to appear from a vacuum, fully formed, with no preceding period of trial and error. This is not coincidence. This is a fingerprint, a global architectural signature left by a single, unified civilization. A civilization that saw the world not as a collection of competing tribes, but as a single, integrated energy circuit. Look, here is the bridge, a cyclopean marvel of impossible engineering. A symphony of perfect granite arches, each stone cut and placed with a precision that defies the era. Here are towers that scrape a sky still untouched by the smog of true heavy industry. A filigree of steel woven with a complexity our own age would find challenging. The architecture speaks of a divine understanding of physics, of geometry, of resonance. It is a monument to a godlike intelligence. Now look at the foreground. Look at the world of the supposed builders. We see the churned, inescapable mud of the unpaved world. We see rickety wooden carts, pulled by exhausted beasts, struggling through the muck. We see the people, figures cloaked in coarse fabrics, their faces etched with the hardship of a life lived at the mercy of the elements. There is no evidence of the massive industrial infrastructure required for such a project. No fleets of steam-powered cranes, no massive haul transport, no precision stone-cutting factories. There are only men with hammers, horses, and a will that, according to the official story, bordered on suicidal. This is the core of the cognitive dissonance. The tool does not match the hand that supposedly wielded it. The artifact does not belong to the civilization that claims it. The bridges were not built to connect London to itself or Budapest to itself. They were built to connect nodes on a planetary grid. The homogeneity of their design is not a matter of shared artistic taste. It is the result of a standardized, industrial-scale technology, a form of planetary infrastructure. These were not works of art, they were instruments. And what did these instruments connect? They were the great arteries, the primary conduits of this lost global system. They spanned the chasms, the rivers, the geographical barriers, linking the vital organs of the old world. What were these organs? Look at what stands at the terminals of these great bridges. You will not find simple villages. You will find the great power plants, the cathedrals with their acoustic resonance chambers and metallic spires. You will find the administrative hubs, the state capitals and parliament buildings designed with principles of harmonic architecture. You will find the data centers, the great libraries and observatories aligned to celestial and telluric currents. The bridges were the wiring that held this planetary machine together. They ensured the circuit was complete, that the energy flowed uninterrupted across continents. Consider the great world's fairs of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Chicago, 1893. Paris, 1900. St. Louis, 1904. These were not celebrations of our own industrial progress. We are shown a world that can barely pave a road, yet we are asked to believe they could raise these titans from the bedrock. Look closely at this image. Your own eyes are the only expert witness required here. If you too can see the impossibility of it all, if you feel that gnawing sense that the pieces do not fit, then acknowledge it, affirm what you see. Let the algorithm know that more eyes need to be opened to this glaring anomaly. The dissonance deepens when we shift our focus from the whole to the parts, when we examine the structure with a forensic eye. All around the world, the same clues emerge. Notice the lower arches of so many of these monumental bridges. We are told these are foundations, but they are not. They are amputations. Arches designed to span a void, now plunging directly into the earth, or choked by the modern water line. This is the silent testimony of a former, lower ground level, the ghost of a world buried beneath our feet by a cataclysmic event, the mud flood. This is not erosion. It is evidence of soterrament. The structures were not built into the mud. The mud rose to meet them. And then there are the doors. Look here, upon the sheer stone face of this tower. They were the last, flickering activations of the inherited technology. They were vast, temporary cities of light, powered by an energy source we can no longer comprehend. And where were they often built? Strategically positioned in proximity to these great bridges and the power centers they connected. The fairs were a spectacle, yes, but a controlled one. They used the existing grid, the Tartarian infrastructure, as an energetic anchor to power the displays. It was a final showcase of the old world's magic, presented to a dumbfounded population as the product of their own primitive era. And then, once the show was over, the evidence was systematically dismantled. The great palaces of light were labeled temporary, built of plaster, and demolished under the most transparent of pretexts. It was a controlled demolition not just of buildings, but of memory itself. The engineering of forgetting in its most blatant form. We are told this global similarity in architecture was the result of styles like Beaux-Arts or Gothic revival becoming fashionable. This is an insult to our intelligence. It is a nursery room explanation for an industrial and technological reality. A style cannot explain the shared mastery of Cyclopean stonework. A fashion cannot account for the simultaneous appearance of advanced metallurgical techniques on different continents. What we are seeing is the wreckage of a globalized system, later claimed and rebranded by the localized, successor states that rose from its ashes. A perfectly crafted doorway, complete with a heavy stone lintel, 50, 100 feet in the air. There is no balcony. There was never a staircase. There is no access. These are not follies of a whimsical architect. They are entryways to a world that is no longer there, connectors to a vast network of buildings and causeways now entombed in the earth. Finally, we are told to admire the decorative spires, the ornamental obelisks and metallic pinnacles that crown these titans. Look again. These are not ornaments. They are terminals, the dead nerve endings of a planetary system of atmospheric energy, now inert. They were designed not for beauty, but for function, to draw and channel a power we no longer comprehend. What we are looking at is not a construction site. It is an archaeological site, a scene of recovery, not creation. The visual record doesn't show us men building a bridge from nothing. It shows a remnant population, a culture of survivors, crawling over the corpse of a giant, attempting to repurpose the inherited technology they could no longer create themselves. They are not the builders. They are the inheritors. And we are their descendants. Still living in the shadow of a truth we are not meant to remember. And so we arrive at the heart of the deception. The local heroes, the Roeblings, the Eiffels, the Adam Clarks, were not creators. They were salvagers. They were the first generation of cargo cult engineers, patching up a system whose true purpose they could no longer grasp. The pattern isn't just in these monumental bridges. It is everywhere, once you are given the eyes to see. It is a ghost haunting our cities. This architectural signature, this Tartarian DNA, is present in countless old post offices, courthouses, water pumping stations, and university buildings all over the world. They are the lesser nodes, the capillary veins of the same dead system. They stand out, dissonant and over-engineered, among the bland concrete and glass boxes of our modern age. They are orphans, just like us. This is the key to breaking the conditioning of the control matrix. The evidence of this unified, global culture is not hidden in a secret vault. It is in plain sight. It is the bridge you drive over on your way to work. It is the old city hall your grandparents admired. They are all around us, silent witnesses to the great silence that followed the last reset. They are waiting for us to stop seeing them as mere historical curiosities and to start seeing them for what they are, the components of a lost inheritance. The official story, the one printed in textbooks and recited by tour guides with a practiced, hollow reverence. They present it to us as a historical document, but when you look closer, when you apply even the slightest pressure of logical scrutiny, you find it is not a document at all. It is a fairy tale, a carefully constructed myth designed to soothe our cognitive dissonance and lull our curiosity back to sleep. They called it the age of industry, the triumph of man. We call it the grand alibi. Let us place their most cherished exhibit on the autopsy table, the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. The official narrative is a hagiography, a tale of heroic struggle against impossible odds from 1869 to 1883. It is a story of vision, sacrifice, and the indomitable human spirit. It is also a logistical and physiological impossibility. The script they hand us proudly admits to the use of pressurized underwater chambers, caissons, to excavate the riverbed for the tower foundations. A technology so poorly understood that it crippled its own chief engineer and killed dozens of workers with a mysterious affliction they called caisson disease. Now, pause here. Let the absurdity of this claim resonate. The system is broken, the grid is dormant, but its infrastructure remains. Look around you, not at the screen, but out your window, on your next walk through your own town or city. Have you seen them? The red brick buildings with arched windows that seem out of place. The granite foundations that sink into the ground with no explanation. The towers and spires that serve no modern purpose. They are there. They are the footprints of the same global civilization. The synchronicity is not a theory. It is a physical, measurable, observable reality. You just have to disconnect from the official narrative and connect to the evidence of your own eyes. Tell us where you have seen them. The map of the old world is not meant to be found in an archive. It is meant to be rebuilt, piece by piece, by all of us. The global pattern is not a coincidence. It is a blueprint, an echo of a unified design philosophy, a single, coherent technological signature left upon the face of the planet. But if the builders were one, and their network was planetary, a chilling question emerges from the silence of the archives. What became of the operators? What happened to the knowledge? The answer is perhaps the most tragic chapter in the entire forensic record of our civilization. We are asked to believe that a civilization, which had not yet grasped the basic physiological effects of pressure on the human body, simultaneously possessed the advanced engineering, quarrying, and logistical mastery to extract, cut with near-perfect precision, transport, and hoist tens of thousands of granite blocks, each weighing as much as a dozen horses. They could orchestrate a symphony of cyclopean masonry that would stand for centuries, yet they could not keep their own men from dying in agony from the bends? This is not a paradox, this is a tell. It is the fatal flaw in the cover narrative. The story of sacrifice is not a badge of honor for their ingenuity. It is the evidence of their incompetence. It is the sound of a primitive culture attempting to repair a piece of inherited technology far beyond its comprehension, and paying the price in blood. The high death toll wasn't the cost of creation. It was the catastrophic result of a salvage operation gone wrong. This brings us to the myth of the founder, the archetype of the lone genius who wills these monuments into existence. Figures like Washington Roebling are cast as the protagonists of this epic, demigods of draftsmanship and steel. But this is a fallacy of personalization, a narrative trick to give a face to an anonymous inherited legacy. We are what happened, we the survivors, the amnesiacs. We live as the inheritors of a kingdom we no longer understand, fumbling with artifacts of immense power, using them for the most mundane and primitive of purposes. We are a cargo cult, living in the shadow of our own forgotten greatness. Anthropologists use this term, cargo cult, to describe isolated tribes who, after witnessing advanced technology from outsiders, like cargo planes delivering goods, attempt to replicate the event through ritual. They build effigies of airplanes from straw and vines. They carve wooden headphones and sit in wicker control towers, mimicking the actions of the pilots and air traffic controllers. They perform the ritual, hoping the magic will return the cargo. They do not understand the principles of aerodynamics, of combustion, of logistics. They only see the outward form and mistake the ritual for the cause. They are practicing a form of sympathetic magic born from a profound technological misunderstanding. Now, look around. Look at our world with forensic eyes. Are we so different? We have inherited a planet littered with the silent, dormant machinery of a parent civilization, and we, the children left behind, have turned our functional architecture into our ritualistic playgrounds. The great bridges, these titanic instruments of geological stabilization and energetic conduction, are the most glaring examples. These men were not creators. They were repair foremen. They were the first responders after a cataclysm, tasked with patching up the ruins of a far superior world. Consider the official portrait of Roebling, crippled by the very technology he was supposedly mastering, confined to his apartment, observing the colossal work through a telescope. The storytellers frame this as a testament to his unbreakable will. We ask you to see it for what it is. The frantic manager of a retro-engineering project, desperately trying to make sense of an alien artifact from a distance. He wasn't supervising the birth of his child. He was trying to read the partial instruction manual for a machine he found, a machine whose true purpose he could only guess at. He was not a composer conducting his orchestra. He was a survivor trying to figure out which levers to pull to stop the incomprehensible machine from collapsing entirely. Do you truly believe this official version? Does it satisfy your intellect to think that a man with a telescope and a handful of dying workers raised these titanic towers from the mud? Or does a more logical, albeit more disturbing conclusion present itself? That they found the towers already there, perhaps damaged, perhaps partially submerged, and their heroic 14-year construction was, in fact, a grueling, clumsy, and deadly effort to simply connect the two with a bridge deck, using the rudimentary technology of their time. We saw a flat surface spanning a river, and with the limited imagination of a post-cataclysmic survivor, we concluded its only purpose was to be walked upon. We turned a planetary stabilizer into a simple roadway. We use a quantum computer as a doorstop, because the only property we can still perceive is its weight. And so, we perform the rituals. Consider the modern ceremony of a bridge inauguration. Politicians gather. A ribbon is stretched across the entrance. With great pomp, a pair of scissors is produced, and the ribbon is snipped. The crowd applauds. This is a cargo cult ritual in its purest form, a hollow theatrical pantomime of a forgotten technical procedure. We are mimicking, without comprehension, what must have been the final step in a complex process of activation. The moment the bridge was tuned, its resonant frequencies aligned with the local grid, and its primary function brought online. Our ancestors threw a switch. We cut a ribbon. We have replaced engineering with spectacle, substance with symbolism. We celebrate the function we can understand, the transport of carts and cars, because the true purpose, the harmonic stabilization of the very ground beneath our feet, is a concept as alien to us now as a combustion engine is to the tribe-building straw airplanes. They didn't build the monument. They merely made it walkable. They hung a clothesline between two pre-existing monoliths. The fragility of this official narrative lies in its condescension. It treats us like children. It gives us a simple plot, a clear hero, a formidable villain in the form of nature, and a triumphant ending. It relies on our unwillingness to ask the hard questions, to do the simple math. They show us the photograph of the proud mayor cutting a ribbon, and they expect us to feel a sense of ancestral pride. But we are no longer part of that audience. We are the forensic accountants of history, and we see that the books have been cooked. The numbers do not add up. The timeline is impossible. The technological capabilities are anachronistic. The story of the Brooklyn Bridge, as told by the establishment, is a bedtime story for a sleeping civilization. A fable designed to explain away the colossal bones of a dead giant. They tell us, your plucky ancestors, with their horses and their steam donkeys, built this. And they hope we never ask, how? They hope we never look at the scale of the tool versus the scale of the achievement and recognize the profound, screaming disconnect. The question is, are you content with their legend? This mimetism, this primitive repurposing of inherited technology, is everywhere. The towering stone pylons of the bridges, which our analysis suggests contained resonant chambers or complex etheric machinery, have been hollowed out. Their function lobotomized. They are now presented to us as scenic overlooks or empty tourist attractions. The ornate metallic spires and lanterns that adorn them, once terminals for drawing energy from the atmosphere, have been crudely retrofitted with gas lines and electrical wires. We took a self-powering system and plugged it into our own primitive, inefficient grid. We inherited a fountain of endless energy and turned it into a decorative lamppost, forever chaining it to the very power plants it was designed to make obsolete. This pattern of functional degradation extends far beyond the bridges. The great cathedrals of the world, with their precise sacred geometry and acoustic properties, were not merely houses of worship. They were harmonic power plants, designed to convert sonic vibration and cosmic frequencies into life-sustaining energy. We still go there, we still sing the hymns. But it is the ghost of a function, a subconscious ritualistic attempt to reactivate a machine whose operating manual has been lost for centuries. We feel the resonance in the stone, but we no longer know what it is for. Or has the dissonance become too loud to ignore? Do you see the flimsy scaffolding of the official story for what it is? Because from our vantage point, it appears to be on the verge of total collapse. The official story tells of heroes, of genius inventors and tireless workers wrestling nature into submission. It's a comforting bedtime story, a fable of progress we tell ourselves to feel secure in our place at the apex of history. But history is not a storybook. It is a crime scene. And when the forensic audit begins, the fables burn away, leaving only the cold, hard numbers. And the numbers, in this case, do not whisper of heroism. They scream of impossibility. Let us, for a moment, suspend our disbelief. Let us accept their narrative that the Brooklyn Bridge was built from scratch, from the mud up, between 1869 and 1883. Let us take their story at face value and subject it to the one thing it cannot withstand, a logistical audit. We will ignore the esoteric, the energetic, the geological functions for a moment. We will focus only on the simple, brutal mathematics of moving heavy objects from one place to another. The official records, the very ones they use to build their narrative, state that the bridge's towers and anchorages contain 239,531 cubic meters of masonry. The towering obelisks found in the centers of our oldest cities, we are told they are monuments to great men or military victories. A forensic analysis suggests they are acupuncture needles for the Earth's ley lines, nodes in a global wireless energy network, now inert. We took the pinnacle of an ancient science and turned it into a war memorial. We replaced an antenna with a tombstone. We are a species living in a state of profound cognitive dissonance, tenants in a palace we did not build, and we have lost the user's manual. Each day, we walk through the halls of this technological inheritance, surrounded by evidence of a power and wisdom that dwarfs our own, and we call it history. We call it primitive. We have ritualized our own ignorance. The act of forgetting has been institutionalized, turned into a curriculum, and taught to our children as progress. The greatest lie is the one we tell ourselves, that the straw airplane we built is the pinnacle of aviation, that our crude electrical grid is an improvement upon the atmospheric energy network we dismantled, that a simple roadway is the highest and best use for a machine that could hold the world steady. This is the source of the quiet melancholy that haunts modern man. Let us be precise. This is not just stone. This is primarily granite, limestone, and cement. Granite has a density of approximately 2.75 metric tons per cubic meter. A simple calculation reveals a weight of over 650,000 tons of stone alone. 650,000 tons. I want you to hold that number in your mind. Do not let it become an abstraction. Picture it. It is the weight of 100 Great Pyramids of Giza compressed into 2 towers and 2 anchorages. Now let us ask the forbidden question. How did they move it? The year is 1870. The internal combustion engine is a distant dream. The primary tools for heavy transport are the horse, the cart, and the barge. A heavy-duty dray wagon, pulled by a team of strong horses on a paved road, could perhaps manage 2 tons. On the muddy, unpaved tracks leading from the quarries of New England, 1 ton would be an optimistic figure. To transport 650,000 tons of granite, this civilization would have required a fleet of over 500,000 horse-drawn cart journeys. 500,000. Imagine the procession. A continuous, unbroken chain of groaning carts, day and night for 14 years. A logistical artery of such magnitude it would have paralyzed the entire northeastern seaboard. A deep, unsettling feeling that we are orphans. That we are living amidst the ruins of a far grander reality, a birthright that was stolen from us before we even knew we had it. The silence of these stones is a testament to our loss. They are silent because we have forgotten the language they speak. They are dormant because we have forgotten how to turn them on. If this vision of a humanity adrift in the wreckage of its own forgotten genius resonates with you, if this feeling of profound loss for a world you've never known feels more true than the history you were taught, it is not an accident. It is a memory, buried deep in our collective consciousness, trying to surface. If the silence of these ancient stones speaks to you, ensure you are subscribed. We need awakened minds for the work ahead. We are gathering the ones who are ready to listen. We inherited their world, but not their memory. We walk upon their works, performing the empty rituals of a cargo cult, believing our crude reinterpretations to be the pinnacle of progress. But this amnesia was not an accident. It was not a gradual fading of knowledge across generations. It was a severance, a brutal surgical strike on the timeline of humanity. Where are the records for this gargantuan undertaking? Where are the contracts for the tens of thousands of horses, the legions of teamsters, the blacksmiths, the wheelwrights? Where are the ledgers detailing the purchase of food and water for this mobile army? There is nothing. A complete, deafening silence. The supply chain, the very backbone of any construction project, exists only in the imagination of the storytellers. They show us the finished monument, but they cannot show us the mountain being moved. Because it never was. And what of the men? Thousands of them, they say. Quarrymen, stonecutters, masons. Let us consider the food alone. An army of thousands of men performing hard physical labor requires tons of food every single day. This necessitates another vast and complex supply chain. Farms, slaughterhouses, granaries, transport networks, all dedicated to this single project. Again, we search the archives for evidence of this massive logistical support system, and again, we find a vacuum, an absence so profound it becomes a form of evidence itself. It is a negative image of the truth. They are describing the construction of a citadel, but they have no record of its army, its supply lines, or its quartermaster. This cognitive dissonance deepens when we examine the technology of the bridge itself. The 4 main cables are composed of 23,000 kilometers of galvanized steel wire. The event that crippled the old world was not a simple catastrophe. It was a targeted demolition, a mud flood, yes, but not of rain and silt. A liquefaction of the very substrate of civilization, induced by a force we can no longer name. A weaponized frequency, perhaps, or a cosmic resonance that turned the earth to soup, swallowing entire city levels in a single silent gulp. The grid was shattered. The atmospheric resonance chambers fell quiet. And in the ensuing chaos, a new power rose from the ruins. Not builders, but scavengers. A parasitic class that understood one thing with perfect clarity. To control the future, you must first annihilate the past. Their ascension began with the most audacious crime ever committed, the engineering of forgetting. First, they stole the authorship. They took the surviving, over-engineered structures, the bridges that withstood the liquefaction, the cathedrals that held their harmonic integrity, and they wrote themselves into the role of creators. They invented heroic narratives of impossible construction, stories of men with shovels and mules raising cyclopean marvels. They gave us the myth of the genius architect, a comforting fable to mask the reality of the salvage operator, the repairman patching up a technology he could never hope to comprehend. They performed a grand act of plagiarism on history itself, and we, the dazed survivors, were forced to applaud their supposed ingenuity. Let me repeat that. 23,000 kilometers, enough wire to circle the Earth's equator more than halfway. This was not simple iron wire. It was high-tensile, corrosion-resistant steel, produced to a uniform quality of a standard that most foundries of the 1870s could not reliably achieve for a single kilometer, let alone 23,000. Where was the industrial complex capable of this miraculous output? A factory of that scale would have been a landmark in its own right, a wonder of the industrial world. Its name would be in every engineering textbook. Yet, it does not exist in the historical record. There are no detailed schematics of the wire drawing machinery, no company records of this unprecedented production run, no evidence of the vast quantities of zinc required for the galvanization process. We are shown the miraculous web, but the spider that spun it is a ghost. We are presented with an artifact of a technology that had no visible means of production. It is the equivalent of finding a smartphone in a medieval castle and being told the local blacksmith hammered it out in his forge. The tool simply does not match the era. The artifact does not match its alleged creator. The narrative they have constructed is a stage play. But a stolen narrative is fragile. It cannot withstand evidence. And the evidence was everywhere, in municipal archives, in photographic plates, in engineering libraries, and the private records of the true preceding civilization. So the second phase was enacted, an archive burning on a continental scale. The Great Fires, Chicago, 1871. San Francisco, 1906. Countless others, dismissed as tragic accidents. They were not accidents. They were tactical operations. Pyres of history, set ablaze to incinerate the proof. They didn't just burn wood and paper. They burned our birthright. Every photograph showing a pristine, empty city before the supposed pioneers arrived. Every blueprint that detailed the true energetic function of a state capital. Every land deed that referenced a world before the reset. All of it turned to ash. The great silence was born in these flames, creating the negative space, the vacuum in our history, that they could then fill with their lies. The final act of the crime was the most insidious. After destroying the physical proof, they had to poison the well of human inquiry itself. They constructed a new academic system, a control matrix designed to perpetuate the cover story. They established institutions that would reward conformity and ridicule dissent. They created a lexicon of control. Words like pseudoscience and conspiracy theory were forged as intellectual cages, designed to shame and silence anyone who dared to question the official narrative. They show us the actors on the stage, the heroic Roebling, the brave workers, and they point to the magnificent set piece of the bridge. But they forbid us from going backstage, because backstage there is nothing. No props, no machinery, no infrastructure. The entire support structure for the story is missing. We have artistic sketches, but not a single comprehensive engineering blueprint detailing the resonant frequencies or the subterranean pressure calculations. We have heroic newspaper articles, but no shipping manifests. We have dedication ceremonies, but no supply chain inventories. This is the great secret of the matrix of control. History is not what happened. It is what is written down. And what is written down can be a work of fiction. They have given us a novel, and we have mistaken it for a documentary. They ask us to believe that a civilization of men in cloth caps, living in muddy streets, who were still dying from basic infections and who barely understood the physics of compressed air, could somehow quarry, dress, transport, and assemble 650,000 tons of granite with millimeter precision, while simultaneously inventing and mass-producing a quantity of high-technology steel wire that would tax even a modern industrial nation. They ask us to believe in a miracle, but engineering is not about miracles. They taught us to believe that the men in mud-caked boots and horse-drawn carts built a world of impossible precision and scale, and they taught us to call anyone who points out this glaring anomaly a fool. They taught us to police ourselves, to enforce the boundaries of our own ignorance. This is the engineering of forgetting. A crime so vast, its crime scene is the planet itself. Its primary weapon is not a gun, but silence, and so our defense cannot be passive. Silence is their control matrix. Sharing this knowledge is a crack in its foundation. Send this to one other mind that is ready to awaken. This is not entertainment. This is an act of forensic reclamation. The age of orchestrated amnesia is over. The quiet is finally beginning to break. We are a species with amnesia, cosmic orphans living amidst the incomprehensible ruins of our true ancestors. Every bridge we cross, Every monument we gaze upon is a silent testament not to our ingenuity, but to our collective forgetting. We have been taught a lie. We were told we are the pinnacle of progress, the architects of modernity. The truth is far more humbling and far more terrifying. We are the survivors of an apocalypse, attempting to decipher the technology of a golden age with the tools and understanding of a lesser one. It is about logistics. It is about supply chains. It is about mathematics. And the mathematics here do not add up. They present a fatal paradox, an equation that cannot be solved. The official narrative of the construction of these great cyclopean bridges is not just historically improbable. It is a violation of the fundamental laws of physics, economics, and logistics. It is a fairy tale told to conceal a truth so profound it would shatter our entire conception of the past. The truth that we are not the builders. We are the inheritors. We are the tenants, living in the repurposed ruins of a world so far beyond our own, we can no longer even comprehend the science that built it. The mathematics do not lie. They are cold, impartial, and brutal in their honesty. If you can construct a logical model where these numbers make sense using the technology and logistical capacity of the 1870s, I would genuinely be interested to read your theory. Because from where we stand, looking at the evidence and the glaring lack of it, there is only one conclusion. The crime scene has been staged. The logistical vacuum surrounding the Brooklyn Bridge is not an isolated anomaly. It is a single glaring data point in a pattern so vast, so consistent, that to ignore it is an act of willful blindness. We are tenants in a civilization built by giants, and the instruction manual was deliberately burned by the parasites who claimed our inheritance. This is the ultimate dissonance, the source of a deep, unnamed anxiety in the modern soul, the quiet, persistent feeling that we are not living up to the world we inhabit, that the stage is far too grand for the actors. To accept their cover narrative, the heroic tales of men with horse-drawn carts building structures that defy our own modern logistics, is an act of intellectual surrender. It is to consent to our own diminishment, but to question, to truly see the logistical paradox in the stone and the steel, to feel the anomaly in the impossible scale that is the first step toward reclaiming our stolen birthright. It is the beginning of remembering. The engineering of forgetting was their most powerful weapon, but it has a flaw. They could burn the records. They could rewrite the books. They could build a control matrix of ridicule and academic dogma to silence dissent. But they could not unbuild the world. They could not erase the evidence that is carved into every granite block and woven into every steel cable. The truth was never meant to be found in the history books written by the victors of the Great Reset. We have been trained to see these structures as proud, isolated achievements of fledgling nations. A triumph of American ingenuity here, a testament to British imperial might there, a symbol of French artistic flair across the sea. This is the foundational lie of the control matrix, the illusion of separation. They compartmentalized our history, broke it into 1,000 disconnected pieces, and sold us a fractured identity. But the stones themselves tell a different story. The stones do not lie. Let us pull back from the cold waters of the East River. Let the vertigo take hold. We are no longer in New York. In a blink, we stand before the Trinity Bridge in St. Petersburg, Russia, completed in 1903. Look closely. The same monumental granite pylons, the same intricate lattice work of steel, the same sense of impossible scale against the horse-drawn carts of the era. They tell us it was a French design, a symbol of a new alliance, a cover story, a convenient narrative to explain away an artifact that bore the exact same architectural DNA as its supposed American contemporary. Now, let the map spin again. We are in Budapest, standing in the shadow of the Széchenyi Bridge, officially opened in 1849. Again, the twin triumphal arch towers, the massive stone foundations, the sheer defiance of gravity. It is encoded in the silent language of the masonry, in the forgotten mathematics of the arches, in the harmonic resonance that still sleeps deep within the pylons. This investigation has never been merely about bridges. It is about our identity. It is about recovering the memory of a humanity so advanced, so connected, so powerful, that its surviving infrastructure is mistaken for the work of gods or attributed to the primitive efforts of our recent forefathers. To unlock the secret of these bridges is to unlock the secret of who we truly are and what we are capable of becoming again. The forensic autopsy of our history has only just begun. The great silence is about to be broken. The investigation does not end here. It deepens. If the frequency of this truth resonates with you, if you feel the call to continue excavating the buried past with us, then subscribe and activate the signal. Welcome to the resistance.